Hello, and welcome to Regrets I've Had a Few. I'm Paul Hunter, Artistic Director of Told by an Idiot, and this is a podcast where I talk to friends and colleagues delving into what made them the person they are today.
Hello, and welcome. My guest this month is a dancer, choreographer, and teacher who has worked consistently in the UK and across the world. He is a regular performer with the award-winning Cape Prince Zoo Nation Company, appearing in shows such as Into the Hoods and the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. He can currently be seen in the acclaimed adaptation of The Matrix, Free Your Mind, directed by Danny Boyle. And he was also the only reason that my son, when he was 2 years old, would eat his vegetables. More of that later. Welcome, Mikey Ureta.
Hello, how's it going?
Oh, it's good. It's great. It's good to see you, Mikey. Really good. And I'm so glad you could join us. And I know you're very busy, so I won't keep you long. I'll come to why you're busy. Well, I mentioned it in the intro, this extraordinary new show that sounds amazing in this extraordinary venue, but we'll come to that later. But what I always do at the beginning of these things is kind of start at the beginning in a way, performatively speaking. And I just wondered, could you remember your first experience of seeing live performance and what it was and where it was?
I actually do, and it's funny you mentioned that because watching a live performance when I was a very young kid was one of the reasons I got into dance. And I believe the very first one that I can recall is watching Into the Hoods originally at the South Bank Centre with my mum, and I believe it was 2008 around that time. And I remember it's the first time I'd seen anything hip hop or anything dance related on stage, and it just blew my mind away. And my mum walked away with the leaflet for Zoo Nation and for Into the Hoods, and I was on the last page. It said something about classes every Saturday, and then I just kept bugging her to sign me up. And a couple of years later, here we are. Well, more than a couple of years now.
Wow, that's amazing. So you grew up in London, is that right?
Yeah, born and raised in South London. I used to watch YouTube videos of some dance stuff, but it wasn't anything crazy. And I think that was the first time it clicked in my brain that, wow, this is something that I really want to do. I want to be performing on stage, doing what these amazing dancers are doing.
Wow, so there was no kind of dance in your family, in your background or anything?
So my dad and my uncles used to mess around when they were little, but it wasn't, I think dance was so much of a little thing back in the day.
Yeah.
So there was less opportunities for dancers. So people did it more as a hobby in their friends groups, but it wasn't anything serious. And it was only up until recently where you start to see it on TV and on stage and in music videos. It's become more of a thing for the world that's been out there.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That I suppose which you're very much part of, the bigger journey of dance for your generation and how big that's come. We'll touch on that later. So you're 8 years old. You pester your mom. And then you turn up, I assume, on a Saturday morning for a class. What was that first class like? Were you nervous?
I was nervous. Luckily, when I walked into the room, I saw one of my friends from school in the corner in a lunge position because they were all stretching. And I think all my nerves kind of went away because I knew that there was someone there that I could connect with and bond with. So I didn't feel so much on my own, but it was nerve-wracking. There's so many amazing kids there. And I remember starting at Zoo Nation in the beginners class, and seeing the different classes and the different levels, it was just so inspiring for me. And I think it touched something in my heart where I wanted to work my way up and just improve and learn as much as possible. So I was a very young kid, very inspired, very much small fish in a big pond. And I love the feeling of it. I love the feeling of learning.
Ah, that's amazing. So that first class, like you say, and then hopefully you met a pal from school and everything. So were you continuing to dance outside of the classes? Were you watching things and looking at stuff, and was it becoming a bit of a passion for you, I suppose?
Yeah, 100%. And I think I was at the age and at that point in life where YouTube was becoming a really big thing. So I used to obviously go to Zoo Nation every Saturday. I used to tell my friends about it at school, and I used to mess around in the playground trying to teach myself how to flip, really hurting myself, just throwing myself about. But just that I want to learn how to do this, so you just do it every day. And then ended up being a thing of I would type in Zoo Nation on YouTube. I would watch all their videos, and then that would be recommended to other dance videos, and I'll just be trying to absorb as much information. And I remember being that little boy at a screen. I would stay there for hours watching loads of random dance videos, just be inspired.
Well, that's a really, obviously, I'm a parent, and my family, and you've met my kids and growing up and everything. But that feels to me, you hear so many negative things about people looking at screens or watching, stuff, and that seems a really positive way of going, I'm going to learn something. I'm going to watch this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to watch what someone does. And then I'm going to go to the playground or the park and I'm going to try and do that. That's basically what you were doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was getting so much inspiration. And I know there is so many negative connotations of social media and staring at screens nowadays, but there is inspiration to take from that. And for me, where I was at my life, being such a young kid, looking for inspiration and role models, anything dance related really like caught me. And I felt like from a young age, I knew what I wanted to do, which I'm very proud of, and I'm very blessed and grateful to have been in that position from a young age.
Yeah, that's amazing. And also, obviously, I know a little bit, but nowhere near the amount that you do. I mean, intrinsically, with the hip hop and everything, you're looking at a form that comes out of America, aren't we? That's fundamentally where it is.
Yeah.
So when you were watching those videos, were a lot of them American dancers or American things, or was it a mix of American and British?
It was a mix of American and British, but I would definitely say there was more to be inspired from America, because it was so much of a bigger thing than it was here at that time. Dance in the UK has improved so much over the last 10 years, and there are so many more people who have access to it. But I definitely, when I was a bit younger, there was a lot of American TV shows that like America's Best Dance Crew. So I used to watch all of those seasons and just get inspired. And even stuff like Britain's Got Talent and Got to Dance when I was younger before I actually did it. There was so much inspiration to take from the UK as well.
All right. So you're doing that on a Saturday, and you're also obviously at school. At what point does it become more of a formed idea for you that this is something that you could do? Because I'm always interested in that point when I speak to actors or directors, or you a dancer. What is the point where someone goes, maybe this is what I could do? It doesn't have to just be a hobby. Where did that start to happen for you?
That's an interesting question. I think starting off as classes in the beginners class and intermediate class, it was about training and it was about learning. This is something I wanted to push for. I think after a certain point, you start to get those performance opportunities like the Zoo Nation Christmas show, and you get that feeling of being on stage. And once you get to like advanced, you become part of the youth company. There's so much more performance opportunities out there. And I think that really like lit something in my heart, and it made me feel like I want to do this. Also, seeing my teachers performing on stage or performing on TV, it gave me something to aspire to and something to try and work my way towards. Like there was a career path, you can see the journey of it.
I think that's worth saying for those people who don't know. I think that's, and obviously I'll come to my son Dexter and his journey as well, and our journey of meeting you. But I think it's worth saying, I think what you describe it brilliantly. I think what Zoo Nation are fantastic at is that sense of giving not young people, not just an opportunity, but a sense that things are possible.
Yeah.
And I think what I love is, and you mentioned those Christmas shows, and we as a family loved them. Obviously, we went to see Dexter when he was little, but those Christmas shows at the Place Theatre, where it wasn't just about the kids, it was a mix of very experienced dancers down to the littlest kids.
Yeah.
It was a whole evening where everything was mixed together. And I think that's quite unique. And I can absolutely understand why that's inspiring to think, well, maybe this is possible. As I progress and move through these different kind of levels, I suppose it is possible.
Yeah.
But I'm always aware when I talk to you and when I see you, and brilliantly, we're going to see you again soon briefly with that. We bring Get Happy back. I'll come to that in a minute. There is something obvious about what you do, which is a very tangible skill, which you have to learn, and you have to, keep learning. Because obviously, if I try to do what you do very quickly, the audience realize he can't do that. So it's a bit like music, I think. When someone plays an instrument, you know what I mean? It's tangible, you see it. But what I love about the work I've seen you do, and indeed Zoo Nation, is not just the skill, which is there, but the kind of spontaneity and the pleasure and the enjoyment that's wrapped up in that. Can you talk a little bit about those two things, the technique and the pleasure, I suppose?
Yeah, I think the technique is obviously very important. The higher level you wanna be as a dancer or as an artist or as a creative. So you definitely want to spend those hours training and improving that technique with repetition and understanding. But on the complete opposite side of the coin, it has to be a passion for you to improve your technique. You want to have a passion and joy and love for doing it. I think for me, the best way to describe it is when you're out and you hear a song that you like, your body naturally moves, even if it's a head bob or you tap your foot. There's something that about that music that inspires you and takes over your body. So I think for dancers, it's a very similar thing. Most dancers, if you put them in a position where there's music playing and they're in a good space, you're going to see them move a little bit. And I think it's that inspiration of, there has to be a balance of, yes, I want to be technically better and technically skilled, but at the same time, I need to enjoy moving and enjoy trusting my body and in the way it interprets music.
That's a brilliant description. That's really spot on. I really thought a bit about that, but that's brilliant. So we move forward to when I first encountered you with our show Get Happy, and actually it was purely by chance. It wasn't that we were looking for a performer like you from your background. I had an idea around this, creating a family sketch show, and that was my initial idea. And purely by chance, we, as a family, went along to the South Bank Centre to see Zoo Nation do Groove On Down the Road, the version of Wizard of Oz, and you were in it, and it was our first experience of Zoo Nation as a family, and I absolutely loved it right from the beginning. When someone before the show, you heard on the sound someone saying, "This isn't ordinary theatre. This is hip hop theatre," and the crowd went mad. And I thought, this is brilliant. And then on you came and your brilliant comrades, and we all loved it. But particularly my son Dexter, who I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, or whatever, absolutely adored it. And we thought, God, this is interesting that he's really gone for this. And of course, then I suddenly thought, partly inspired by Dexter's reaction, I thought what we need in our show is someone that has that skill and that world if we're going to try and reach a very wide audience in the show. So then, as you know, we then started to, I think we approached Zoo Nation and said, can you recommend some people? And you were on that list. And I don't know if you remember this, but me and my dear late friend, our colleague, Stephen Harper, who was in the show, I said, Steve, you need to come and audition with me, and so they meet someone who's in it. And we got a room somewhere, I think down in Euston. And I remember you coming in, and we'd asked you to prepare a physical sequence or something. And then you did this extraordinary sequence, and me and Steve were like, wow. And then I remember when you went out the room, Steve said, I was really worried because the roof is quite low, and he sprang so high that we were going to go through the roof.
Wow.
I just remember him saying that. And then of course you joined us in two roles, really, which you do as a performer and as a choreographer. And obviously our work in some ways is very different to some of the work you do. It may be more theatre, and it mixes things. It mixes dance and comedy and physical comedy. What was it like when you kind of first joined us? Because it was probably a bit of a different step for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. If I'm correct, that was 2013, I believe, or 20.
Yes,
2013.
Yep.
That was 10 years ago. I was 17, 18 at the time.
Wow.
It was my first show outside of the Zoo Nation show that I can remember. So I also remember coming to the audition, and I also remember how low the roofs were, because in my mind, it's just a mental memory that I'll always remember. But it was so eye-opening for me, and obviously being at that age, having an opportunity to perform at the Barbican and to meet new people and explore theatre in a different way, which isn't maybe so dance heavy, and there are other aspects and other skills that are involved in the show, was really eye-opening for me. I didn't really know what to expect. And I remember coming to the audition and having to rip the sleeves off Steve and do a few of those scenes and the hat tricks and stuff. But I just remember having a joy in myself of, wow, this is I'm really enjoying myself. This is amazing. And it opened up my eyes to a whole different world of theatre and a whole different side of things. And I think for me, it also gave me an opportunity to develop who I was outside of the Zoo Nation, and gave myself a personal opportunity to obviously choreograph and perform in a show like that. It's a show I hold very dear to my heart.
Well, you're a very, very special part of it. And the joy for me was totally, the 2 seasons at the Barbican, but the fact that we, as a group, we got to go to the amazing China gig at the China Beijing Comedy Festival. And also a joy for me was seeing a lot of those Chinese audiences absolutely adore you, when you're in the show, going, my God, what. So it was a fabulous journey. And I look forward to seeing you. We re-rehearse once more to bring it to the Barbican.
Amazing.
At this point, Mikey, we have a section which we call Ask an Idiot, where someone from the public, when they've seen who the guest is keen to ask a question. So let's hear that question now, please.
Hi, my name is Zoe. I'm a dancer and I'm an actor. And I just had a question for Mikey. What choreographers inspired you in the past to get into choreography, and what choreographers sort of still inspire you to this day, and why? Obviously. Thank you.
What an interesting question. And I actually love this question because I get to talk about people that inspired me. So I think from a young age, hip hop or street dance was seen in a certain light. It was like very much popping, locking, breaking, and there was a lot of consensus about how it should have been done. There is a lady called Chanel Fergus who actually works for Z Nation now, and she was our manager when I was in boy band. Her movement and a friend of mine, Jack Poynter Mackenzie, really changed my idea of what dance could be. And I never came from a contemporary background or a ballet background or a technically trained background, but it opened up my eyes to movement and dance as a whole. So I'll definitely say those two are very inspirational figures in my choreographic journey. And also a couple from America called Kiona Marie, Madrid, and how they storytell through their movement again was really enjoyable for me to watch, and I learned so much from watching them. So probably those four would be my top four if I had to choose.
Right, I'm going to go and look at them, as I'm sure many other listeners will. And then I have something unexpected. I'm currently in a show at the RSC performing called Cowboys. One of my lovely colleagues in the show is Michael Elcott.
Yes.
As you know, a dear friend of yours. And he said, please, can I ask Mikey a question? So this is from Michael to you. He says, ask Mikey, what was your best and worst experience of performing in Groove On Down the Road? And if you can't answer this, if it's too risque, then Michael's winding you up. Whatever. But I thought I'd better pitch that question to you.
No, of course. Shout out Michael Elcock. We love you. Best performance is a hard one. I always think press night or the last show of a run is very important. The energies are high. Everyone's in good spirit. So I'll definitely have to say one of those two for the best performance. I think one of the worst performances, and not because it's bad, just because it's funny, is Michael Elcock. You remember this, but the time that I think it was Tom tried to roll over someone else's body and the roll stopped halfway and they both kind of clapped. And it was during a moment where that was the only thing happening on stage. So that was really funny. And if not that, it would be where Sam Parry's shoe came off and you tried to put it on for about 2 minutes, like during the performance. Those would probably be my worst ones. Michael Elcock, I hope you remember those, but that's a funny memory.
I will pass that back to him when I meet him before tonight's show. He's a wonderful performer, by the way, Michael. He's a very gifted actor. Anyway, your career has gone in so many different ways, but I am fascinated by this production you're in at the moment, Mikey, called Free Your Mind. Is that correct? Free Your Mind?
That's correct.
Which, what I've read about, and I've read a lot about it because it sounds amazing, it's loosely based on The Matrix. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's our interpretation of The Matrix and the world we live in today. So yeah, it's definitely loosely based on The Matrix.
Wow. And who's adapted it or created it?
I believe it was designed by Ez Devlin, directed by Danny Boyle. Kenrick H. Joy Sandy from Bobley has choreographed it, and the scores by Mikey J. It's been brought back. There's a lot of moving parts and creatives from different areas coming together to make the show, but it's an experience. It's for me, it's more than like a theatre show or a performance piece. It's a whole immersive experience from the moment you step into the venue.
It sounds extraordinary. You mentioned the venue, but the venue sounds amazing. I mean, I've seen some photos and then I heard something on the radio where they described this new venue in Manchester. Can you talk a bit about the venue? Because it sounds unlike anything I've heard of.
It's so difficult to put into words. I've not performed in a space like this ever before in my life. The venue itself is huge. It's very modern. It has a warehouse space and it also has an auditorium, and there are other spaces within the building. But the scale of it is so huge in comparison to anything I've ever seen before in the UK. And I think what an amazing venue to have in Manchester for the community here and for the UK to enjoy. It's amazing.
Amazing. Someone said, or I read somewhere, that one part of a venue is literally big enough to hold a 747 aeroplane.
Yeah, that is correct. And that is we use that space in the second act of the show. So we cover 2 spaces. We use the whole venue in terms of performing. It's a massive venue. crazy. The scale of it was crazy.
How many performers in the company, Mikey?
Performers, I believe there's between like 45 and 50 of us, 50 dancers on the cast.
What?
Yeah, it's a very big cast, probably the biggest cast I've been on in a long time.
And how long do you play in Manchester for?
We play for another 2 weeks, and we finish on the 5th of November. We've played for about 2 weeks already. It's been a crazy experience. I've been living up here for 3 months, and it's coming towards the last leg of the contract now.
And I mean, given the size of the show, does that mean it will only happen in Manchester, or will we get to see it in London or elsewhere, or what do you think?
I actually myself wish I knew more about where this could go and the potential behind it, but I would love for it to be able to tour if there were venues that could accommodate or if we could adapt the show. But I would definitely love to be in this space and be in this world again. So fingers crossed, we can hope for the best.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing, and I'm really sad I can't get up to see it in Manchester. It sounds an extraordinary thing. Mikey, it's been so lovely chatting to you, and to hear you talk about your craft and what dancing means and what it means to you. I think there's a lot of people who are going to find that very interesting. I certainly do, as someone who's not a dancer who enjoys moving. It's been really intriguing. Thank you very much, and I really look forward to seeing you next month. But we always finish in the same way, Mikey.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you 7 rapid questions. You answer the first thing that comes into your head.
All right.
Pepsi or Coke?
Coke.
The Great Wall of China or the Golden Gate Bridge?
Great Wall of China.
I hope I've got these 2 things right. I'll explain them for the listeners, and if I haven't, you can correct me. An aerial, which I think is a cartwheel with no hands.
Correct.
Or a whip back, which is a backflip. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I would say aerial.
Do you know, I don't know what it is, but I find that very dramatic when someone does that. I find it makes me go, oh my gosh. Anyway, the next question. Everything Everywhere All at Once or The Matrix?
The Matrix, because I haven't actually seen Everything Everywhere All at Once yet. I've heard great things, but I haven't had a chance to watch it.
Mikey, you should see it. It's
on
really
my list.
good.
It's on my list.
I really loved it, and the movement is extraordinary. Jay-Z or Tupac?
Jay-Z.
Speed or precision?
Precision every time.
Film or theatre?
Theatre.
Mikey, have a great day, and I'll see you next month at the Barbican.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Take care.
Dear listeners, if you've enjoyed this idiot podcast, please spread the word